Every one of us at one point or another, and some of us at multiple points or another in our journey can fall asleep to what matters most. We do. We slip off into a slumber. We can fall asleep in our relationships. We can fall asleep in our marriages, in our parenthood, in our friendships, in our vocational calling, in our own self-care. We can slip off into a slumber that keeps us kind of numbed in this elastic consciousness, and we are barely awake to the things that matter the most. But maybe the most tragic is when we fall asleep to faith. When we slip off into what I'm simply going to call a soul slumber. And it happens to all of us. I promise you, one point or another in the journey, we will all slip off into a kind of soul slumber, a spiritual sleepiness. And can I just tell you from my own observations and my own experience that it usually doesn't happen like it happens at the end of a long, exhausting day where you just kind of crash. You know, we don't just crash into a sleeping slumber in our soul or in our spirit. Really, we just kind of drift off. You know, at the end of a long day, if you've worked all day and you're just completely depleted, you'll fall into your couch or into your seat or into your bed. You just crash and then conked out, you're gone. But I don't think that's how we fall asleep spiritually. I think we drift. We drift off and we drift away from a life lived in alignment with the will and the way of Jesus. And we wake up to recognize, how did I get here? How far I've come, and I didn't even know I was drifting off. And in fact, if you pay close attention to those people who study us, they tell us that when we actually literally go to sleep at night, we go through a variety of stages, don't we? There are 4 stages to sleep, and typically we work through those 4 stages of sleep, and sometimes we'll work through them several times throughout the night. Depends on how many times you got to get up and go, you know. But you go through them several times. Is that just me at night? I guess I'm alone in that. 4 stages of sleep, and I think if you'll bear with me for a moment, I think that if we look at how it is that we go into literal sleep and experience the physiological phenomena of going from one stage of slumber into deeper and deeper sleep, we may have a lesson to learn about how we drift off in our spiritual lives as well. Stage 1. I'm told that in stage 1 sleep, it's the lightest of all the sleep. It's kind of an in-between stage where you're kind of in between awake and asleep. You kind of drift in and out a little bit. In fact, stage 1 sleep is that stage of sleep when you start twitching. Anybody twitch when you start to sleep besides Laura? I'm kidding. I twitch when I fall asleep. And the problem is, you know, that's the first stage. Your body's starting to shut down. That's a good thing. Problem is, in my life, you know, Laura may go to bed a few minutes before me and do her reading and talk to Jesus and do the thing and settle down. And then I come in a couple of minutes later and I lie down and I'm asleep in like 5 seconds. I mean, like five seconds. I'm out. It takes her a little longer. She has a lot more on her conscience, I guess. I don't know. I can't help it. I got a clean conscience. I just fall right asleep. But as I fall asleep, and she's really trying to fall asleep, and I start to twitch, every once in a while she'll have to nudge me and she'll say, babe. And she'll wake me up and she'll say, hey, can you turn over or something? I'm kind of keeping her awake. And sometimes it's hard because then she can't go to sleep. I keep twitching again. And sometimes I wake up myself. I wake up, I'm twitching and I wake up. And guys, have you ever awakened and your wife's just kind of looking at you? Not saying anything, but just kind of looking at you as if to say, seriously? This first stage of sleep is when you begin to shut down and your body begins to twitch. But I'm told by those who study us that in this first stage of sleep, 2 common characteristics of this first stage of sleep are that the eyes close and activity is reduced. Now that's interesting to me. Eyes close and activity is reduced. Do you know that all it takes is to close your eyes to the thing that matters most for a little while? You can close your eyes to your spouse. You can close your eyes to your kids. You can close your eyes to your coworkers, to neighbors in need. All you got to do is just shut your eyes. And if you don't see it, then suddenly you begin to not know about its need and not know about where you belong in that need. And all it takes is to simply close your eyes. But we're told by the experts that this first stage of sleep involves closing the eyes and reducing activity. In other words, the first stage of falling asleep spiritually is to stop looking and stop moving. Some of us have closed our eyes to what God is calling us to see in this world. And some of us have reduced our activity. We used to be involved in everything, but all it takes is stop praying one day. And you'll find that it's easy to stop 3 days. Stop reading the scripture 1 week. And a month later, it's easier and easier to slip into this early stage of spiritual slumber. All it takes is to stop. Now, here's the good news about stage one. We're told that stage one is the easiest stage to snap out of. In fact, all you got to do if somebody's in stage one sleep and they're beginning to slip off, all you got to do is say, hey, babe, wake up. And that's a good thing because somebody in your life, God has placed somebody in your life and you know that they've begun to slip into the slumber of the soul. And God has put you in their lives to simply lovingly say, hey, wake up. You're not acting the way you used to. You're not talking. You don't sound the same. Hadn't seen you in a while. You hadn't been to Sunday school in a while. I've missed you in worship. We look around and you're not there. I mean, you were there like 3 weeks ago, but I miss you. I miss you. In other words, wake up. It's later than you think. The good news is that it's easy to wake up out of stage one, but the bad news is stage one is the shortest of all stages. When we fall asleep at night, it's usually only about 10 minutes of our sleep is stage one. That means when you begin to fall asleep spiritually, there is but a little window of time before you move on to stage two. And stage two is where we spend most of our time in sleep. Stage two, a curious thing happens in stage two. The body begins to change a little bit. The body temperature comes down a little bit, and the heart rate changes. Now that's interesting to me. The longer you keep your eyes closed and the longer that you remain in a state of inactivity, the heart begins to slow. It begins to change until it no longer beats in the same rhythm as before. And I know that some of you, when you first came to Christ, were as filled with joy as Noah and David are this morning. And everything about your life was on fire. And your heart, it beat in rhythm with his, and your heart broke over the things that break the heart of God. And your heart, it raced with thrilling passion over the things that makes God's heart race with thrill and with passion. And yet something changed. You closed your eyes. You stopped taking action in your faith. And suddenly your heart now has begun to become uncalibrated, out of synchronization with the heart of God. And what a dangerous place it is to be, because your heart will not stay out of sync with something for long. It will become in sync with something else. And whatever it is that you have synced your life up to, you become that thing. Where your treasure is, your what? Your heart will be also. That's why in Isaiah, or in Ezekiel rather, God says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I say that because somebody is here today and you know that you are in the second stage of this soul slumber, because you realize it feels as if your heart is beating differently than it used to beat. And you don't know what to do about it. And I'm telling you that the God who gave you that heart will recalibrate that heart. But it requires one thing. It requires you got to wake up. because it's later than you think. But stage 2 leads to stage 3. Now, stage 3 and stage 4 are the stages of sleep where we are in our deepest sleep. It's an interesting thing to slip into stage 3 sleep. You know what they tell us about stage 3 sleep? Something happens in the brain. Yeah, something happens in the brain. You begin to develop slow delta waves in the brain. You create these activity spindles, and your brain begins to operate in a different situation, different way, different rhythm, and it slows down to what they call delta waves. Interesting to me. It fascinates me that in stage 2, the heart slows down. In stage 3, the mind slows down. Some of us are in a stage in which we recognize that our thinking has become stinking. We've gotten to a place where we realize I used to live in such a way as to allow the mind of Christ to be my everything. And I yielded to the mind of Christ every day. And where he went, I would go. And what he would do, I would do. And whom he would love and serve, I would love and serve. But something has happened, and I've given myself to some stinking thinking. And now suddenly my mind is not in collaboration and in step and in humble yieldedness to the mind of Christ. And I know it. Is this why Paul said it the way he said it in Romans chapter 12? He said, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know what they tell us about stage 3? When we need a renewed mind. In stage 3, we're told that this is where you are less influenced by outside environmental stimuli. In other words, in stage 3, it's harder to wake you up. In stage 3, you're less responsive to voices. Your mind is working, and your body is not quite relaxed yet. There's a bit of a dissociation between where your mind is and where your body is, and that's why in stage 3, people sleepwalk. Yeah. You know, I don't sleepwalk, but sometimes my mind races before my body has shut down, and at night, about 2 months ago, I promise you this happened. I'm sleeping. And I don't know, maybe I'm somewhere in stage 3 or stage 4, and I'm beginning to dream. I'm starting to dream because I'm fighting ninjas. Oh, don't act like you don't fight ninjas in your sleep. And I'm in the middle, I'm fighting these ninjas, and I backhand them, and pow! Smack Laura right in the face. Yeah, I know. And she screams, and it wakes me up. I'm so mad. Because I was winning, you know. I go back to sleep, and I kid you not, about an hour or so later, they're back. And I smack her again. Only this time, I wasn't so much winning. I was very much losing at that point. In stage 3, your mind can do one thing and your body can do another. It's a dangerous thing to be spiritually asleep in stage 3. To be in a place where you spiritually sleepwalk through life and everybody who looks at you says, oh, well, they're awake. Because look, they're going and doing the thing, and they're leading the thing, and they're teaching the thing, and they're directing the thing, and they're awake. But all the while, the body is doing one thing, but the mind is so far away. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's exhausting. And then you have stage 4, everybody's favorite stage, because stage 4 is where REM happens. It's where rapid eye movement happens. It's the dream state. And everybody now is thick into sleep, and your body's getting what it needs. It's relaxing. It's recovering. It's resting for the new day. But an interesting thing about stage 4 sleep is that your mind can be in one place and your body in another. We're told in stage 4 sleep that your voluntary muscles become immobilized. And someone here has been so asleep spiritually for so long that you know what's needed, but you have become immobilized to do anything about it. And the trouble is when we recognize that we are sleepwalking through life, when we recognize what we must do, but we don't do it, it's not as if we don't know what to do about it. It's that sometimes we say to ourselves, I will take care of this later. God could be calling an action out of you right now that if we don't wake up and recognize that it's later than we think, an opportunity will be passed and we will miss it. We are not promised tomorrow. Maybe there is a part of your life that has been asleep for too long. And you want to do something about it, but are unsure of your first move. Here is the first move. Pray. In all humility, right where you are, in the sacred space of your own heart, offer words like this to your Maker. God, I am tired. And because of my weariness, I have fallen asleep to the wrong things. And I've become awake to the wrong things. But I want that to change right now. Wake me now, Lord. Forgive me of all of my broken things that I have broken myself. Heal me of all the broken parts that have been broken in me. And I will follow you right now for the rest of my life. And you will keep me awake. I pray that in the name of Christ. Amen.